your cameras. If you don't mind being recorded, then please leave your cameras on because it's nicer for the presenters to see who they're presenting to. So the Soil Community Platform, as I said, has been developed through both InBestSoil and BIOservicES. And we've created this platform to really create more of a space where we connect with different projects and also different stakeholders who are working in soil health initiatives. So just as a brief introduction, what we can do in this platform, our aim is to make it kind of an engaging platform where we can connect all of us together, share more insights between people who are actually actively working on soil health. So the first part is obviously connecting. We have over 380, I think, members on the Soil Community Platform, all from different backgrounds, some researchers, some from EU projects, some also from municipalities, NGOs, general soil health experts. So it's really great place to connect with each other and discuss more with each other on soil health related topics. Then, of course, our aim is to share as much knowledge as we can with each other, also share our resources. We work a lot in our projects. We have a lot of output and results, and we hope that the soil community can kind of help link different results together and for us to kind of learn more about each other's projects and what we work on. Lastly, we also want to create a platform where we can work and collaborate more actively together. We have different groups actually that focus on specific topics. We also have a dedicated group for soil sampling and soil health indicators. And our aim is that these groups can be used for you to connect more with people on specific topics and maybe share different methodologies, analysis, results, and more actively collaborate together. Andres describes the platform as the Facebook of soil health. So I think that's a good description of what we can go for. And lastly, of course, we have joint projects and webinars such as this one today, where we really want to bring different perspectives from different projects and have presentations from different soil health experts together so that we disseminate a bit more about our work. We also have a dedicated Q&A time at the end of our session today for you to ask specific questions to the presenters. So yeah, hopefully we can use this community in an engaging way, and that can bring value to your work as well. I will leave also my email in the chat, so you can also always reach me if you have specific questions, how you can use the community for your own work, or if you want to join any future webinars with us as a presenter, that would be great. But for today's presentation is on soil health indicators from selection to sampling. The webinar today marks our third webinar for the Soil Community Platform. We first had one on carbon farming, and we also had one on economic indicators and policy. But today's presentation, we have three main presenters. We have Andres with us, who is the coordinator or one of the coordinators of InBestSoil, as well as a work package lead in BIOservicES. And Andres will be presenting us how we covered 770 samples across 5 different experimental areas and 8 different land uses, and also how we kind of developed the sampling protocol for both BIOservicES and InBestSoil. We also have Paulo with us, who's from Wageningen University and represents benchmarks, and he will also present us the monitoring and evaluation of soil health, together with the indicator measurements used in the benchmarks project. And lastly, we have David with us, who will be presenting AR for soil health, who's from the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and he will be presenting 5 decades of soil monitoring and what insights they have gained. So I want to thank all the presenters for being with us today. It's really great to have you here and share your projects and your results with us. And yeah, without further ado, I will give the floor to Andres, who's also co-moderating this session of today, and then we can jump in the presentations. So Andres, the floor is yours.
Hello, Elena. Thank you, people, to come here today. We have 64 people. That is a nice number, and it's increasing. Welcome to the seminar about the webinar. This webinar about the soil health indicators, where today we have, as Elena told, that we have results or information from different projects, that is InBestSoil, BioServices, benchmarks, efforts of health, and soil health indicators of the UK from the different years. And I hope that this webinar could be good for your projects or feedbacks for any kind of things that we can advance with this. Well, I will begin to share. Wait, sorry, is here. Is sharing, right? Okay,
Yes, you can put it in presentation mode, maybe.
wait.
The slides, and then we can see it full
Sorry.
screen.
Now, I think that now is working. Well, thank you for all to coming here. That my presentation. Well, I'm current coordinator of InBestSoil project and the working package leader of BioServices. That is a project led by Universidad Politécnica de Cartagena in Spain. I'm from the University of Vigo and also in Spain. I will show more the short information about this project that we have in the soil bioservices. Both projects have a similar approach, but big difference between them because InBestSoil was focused more on soil health indicators, more physicochemical indicators, not so much about the biological indicators, while in bioservices we have physical, chemical, and biological indicators. We have a different approach and a different scale sampling. Uh, I will show both projects in a nutshell. The InBestSoil is the project that's beginning 2 years ago. That's monitor evaluation of soil ecosystem services and creation of initiatives to invest in soil health, where we are, it's a project funded by the Soil Mission that is coordinated by University of Vigo, that we have 19 partners across 10 European countries. That is the main objective of the project is create a framework for investment in soil health by developing an economic valuation system of the ecosystem services delivered by healthy soils and the impacts of soil interventions on the incorporations into business models and incentives. Uh, in this project, will be allowed to public and private organizations to give an economic value to their actions over soil health. That could be some of them will be an example for other initiatives to invest in soil health and how to improve even the soil health and give a economic valuation of
Andres,
intervention. Yeah, tell
Andres,
me. Yeah.
sorry. I just need to intervene very quickly. We can't see the presentation in full presentation mode, and I don't think we see the changes in slides. Sorry to
Okay.
intervene so abruptly.
It's wait.
If you can click maybe on the presentation modes one more time to see if that works.
Uh, Now you can see the change.
Not sure. No, we don't see it in full presentation mode.
Wait. If not, I can put like this. Uh,
Are you sharing the full screen or just the window? Sometimes that's the issue.
Full screen. Wait.
Like the option is like to share everything and then it should work.
Yeah. Wait. Wait. I will share again.
If you
And I
select
will
entire screen, maybe should it's I think it's better.
wait. Now it's working.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Sorry.
Amazing.
And
Thank you, Paolo, for your help.
yeah, sorry. And in InBestSoil, we have 7 lighthouses across Europe where we select some high and low quality soils represented by forestry soils and some interventions to improve them, industrial soils, so that's mining soils, that also urban soils where we have different kind of urban agriculture, and urban interventions there, forestry soils in the Ruhr region, and also agricultural soils in the Netherlands. And also we have two living labs that is in Italy, in the Sardine, and we have different kind of agricultural soils. And also in Switzerland, we have also kind of agricultural soils with different kind of interventions. In the lighthouse, we select 8 samples by locations. 2 years ago, we selected high and low quality soils, while in the living lab soils, we select different experimental sites with different conventional alternative managements like biodynamic agriculture, organic agriculture, low low impact on the soil, that like low tillage, all things that could be improve the soil quality. Well, 3 samples were selected by location 2 years ago, and will be collected again this year to assist the change of the over the time. Uh, the soil sampling process for this for InBestSoil, like in bioservices, that will be explained more in detail. Uh, we saw the process that was open process to different stakeholders, different project partners, and different information. We have selected soil depth of 0 to 30 centimeters following the new guidelines of the Lucas, and following the Lucas points. And we collected 1 kilo of each sample, and by a process of a composite sampling of 5 subsamples, following this Lucas point of 1 central point and 4 additional samples on each site. And for the sampling that we collected them, and with the scan that you have in the picture there, and with this all information that we do before, that different kind of soil health indicators were selected, because the first step to give an economic value to ecosystems services associated with soil is to define the most suitable indicators, which will be quantified to have a quantitative value of the ecosystem services in which soil contributes. Different health indicator was selected to try to assess the presence of pollutants, soil organic and carbon stock, soil structure, soil biodiversity, soil nutrients and acidity, vegetation cover, or landscape eternity, or forest cover. For this, we do, like I mentioned before, that was a participatory process with experts, international initiative, other projects, other researchers involved in soil health indicators and soil science, and their open call participation that we select. And for this feedback we selected appropriate indicators for different land uses that we have, like agriculture, forest, urban, and industrial areas, and their different geographic regions, like we have Atlantic, Mediterranean, boreal, and continental. This means that different approaches and different things that we can happen, especially about the weather. This is important that we need when we talk about the soil health indicators, that we can select every soil health indicators, but soil health indicators should be intuitive, sensitive, and accepted. That is very important, these 3 things. With this all information, we selected different soil indicators for methods for plants and crops, that is provision of food, fiber, energy, and raw materials, like crop yield, plant biomass, or forest yield. Also, soil health indicators for provisioning ecosystem services, like habitat for soil for organisms, provision of water, of indicators for climate and flood regulations, soil methods for soil chemical analysis, like for climate regulation, like TOC, POC, TIC, and greenhouse emissions, or water area purification and soil contamination, like metals, pesticides, nitrates, Asian level sodium, or nutrient cycle, like total and mineral nitrogen, available nutrients, etc. And also, different soil methods were selected for soil biological analysis, especially for soil biodiversity, that was focused on total microbial biomass, bacterial, fungi, and protein diversity, and also polyphase, and some cultural indicators like cultural heritage, identity, recreational or cognitive development, and also methods for satellite-based indicators like provision of food, like NDVI, net primary productivity, plant sensing, reflectant index, provision of fiber, energy, and raw materials with all these kind of indicators from satellite, climate regulation, flood regulation, and erosion control. And with these soil health indicators, we selected more than 70 soil health indicators that you can find in the handbook of InBestSoil of soil sampling, procedures and methodologies for the measurement of soil health indicators. That is free available on Zenodo. If you do scan the clear, you can access directly to the Zenodo record, and this presentation will be recorded in the platform, and you can share scan before, after. And regarding bioservices, is a project that also begins now. Will be complete the second year and some months. In this project that is coordinated by University Polytechnic of Cartagena, that is the project is the linking of soil biodiversity and ecosystem functions and services in the different land uses, from identification of drivers, pressures, and climate change resilience to the economic valuation. This project is 22 partners across 11 European countries and associated countries. That in this project we have a different approach. That, like InBestSoil, was a project more related to typical physicochemical soil health indicators to try to assist the different kind of interventions on the soil health to try to improve them. And we have here a different approach because the main objective of bioservices is to understand the interconnection between soil organisms, all kinds of soil organisms, and the delivery of soil multiple ecosystem functions and services on different scale, from field to landscape, and identify the pressures and drivers resulting from different land uses and climate change, and performing the economic valuation of the contribution to soil organisms to ecosystem services. In this project, we have a different approach because we needed to try to define which soil indicators are good for physicochemical, chemical, and biological analysis, to try to find, to analyze all kinds of soil organisms that we have there, and different scales and one with different pressures, and also to try to understand how climate change will be impact on soil and soil organisms. If we simulate or we do a climate change manipulation experiment, like simulation of the condition of the over 100 years. For this all information, this will be identification of mutual relationship between diversity and ecosystem services. This result will be scaled by machine learning algorithms that will be useful for policy indicators, for credit carbon information, for all kind of information that we can imagine there, and we can generate maps of ecosystem services using these indicators. That with this information, we have the all information that will be benefits to the people, and we can evaluate, and we can give a valuation of the ecosystem services provided by the soil. And the bioservices, as Elena told, that was a project, is a project that will cover 770 samples across 5 experimental areas, two in Spain, one in Switzerland, other one in Germany, and another one in Latvia, that cross 8 different land uses. And we have here and more the scheme of the bioservices project, and which involved its task on the project. For this, in the first month of the project, we defined the main soil indicators through a review and their operant participation. And I mentioned before, but this project, we have different soil land uses like forest, mining, urban, agricultural, wetlands. I think that's three more. I don't remember now, but with different kind of soil pressures that we have. In each one, we have a big pressure that is meant that the more anthropogenic pressure, other one that is a middle, and the third that is more or less a control pressure, and therefore we need to define the suitable indicators to try to cover of kind of this. And we're starting from the typical indicators suggested by Soil Mission, like as I mentioned before on the InBestSoil project, is present of pollutants, soil carbon stocks, soil structure, soil biodiversity, nutrients and acidity, vegetation cover, landscape and forest cover. But some ecosystem function and some ecosystem services are not covered by these previous indicators that we needed to define in the bioservice proposal. And with this, we do harmonization of soil health indicators, and we selected some different kind of list indicators. In the case, in the all possible case, we try to follow the Lucas Soil Survey, but in some cases, not able information about this. And with this, we constructed a list of soil health indicators through different soil workshops. That was a task related to the project. And this was very important because we needed to follow this for the sampling of 770 samples. With in the bioservices, we identify different soil indicators represented by different soil ecosystem function and services based on previous projects and Lucas databases, soil-bound initiatives, among others. With this preliminary process, we do different questionnaires that was sent before to the each soil analyst in the bioservices. Different questionnaire was involved for people that working with bacteria, people were working with mesofauna, with nematodes, with earthworms, or with physicochemical soil health indicators. With this feedback, that in this feedback we do as typical questions, and also we do and a table with we put on the previous methodology based on different projects or based on the Lucas methodology, and we asked each soil health soil health analysis if they agree or not. If they not agreed, who can improve this methodology, and try to have this feedback that with this the tele survey that we do a final list of soil health indicators and a final survey that was shared to open to all kind of initiatives to and even to soil health scientists. We have during the 1 month an open survey that was on my internet that was a bit long, but was needed to understand well how is or needed, so how is improve for soil methods and all kind of things. And we achieved interaction from different international projects and international organisms about this. Unfortunately, we have a low number of feedbacks about the different levels outside the projects, and that the problem that we saw that maybe the survey was a bit long, but was needed. But was the feedback was very good because give us a lot of information how to improve for soil sampling process or how to improve for shipping process, storage process, and even analysis process. Was very good information that was provided. And in the workshop that we do in the beginning, we show the results of each health indicator that we selected. In fact, it was very important how to select the soil depth that we will follow. That was a bit complicated to understand which better. We have a different approach because for soil bond, they they explain us no, it's better to 30 to 10 centimeters. Our idea was 30 to 20 centimeters, and other initiatives they said no, it's better to 30 to 30 centimeters to be more aligned with the last updates of BetaCR or Lucas, and also for carbon monitoring. But in fact, the 30 to 20 centimeters that was selected at the end was better because most aligned to and compare the largest soil biodiversity. We have to compare with the previous Lucas databases, and is the most active part of the soil. If we go to the 30 to 20 to 10 centimeters, will we have problems, especially in boreal soils, that is very organic soils. And if we go to 30 to 30 centimeters, we'll have also other problems in other areas, like in Mediterranean areas. And therefore, the 30 to 20 centimeters was the best option we have there. From this, we selected different soil health indicators to 30 to 20 centimeters, but also we selected other indicators to 30 to 30 centimeters to analyze the soil bulk density and also the soil porosity and soil structure that we collected with a special auger to collect a big core of 30 to 30 centimeters to try to analyze after with the X-rays who is the structure of the soil, the water pores, and all kind of thing that is beginning now. And we hope that the result could be very, very, very interesting. But we selected different kind of soil health indicators, provision of food, provision of water, to understand the provision of raw materials, the food regulation and soil erosion, and the climate regulation, water purification, nutrient cycling, and provision of genetic resource and biochemical. That was the most important because we select for analyze all kind of soil organisms we have there, because we measure from bacteria to prokaryote and fungi, metagenomics, protists, mesofauna, airborne macrofauna, and also RI spectroscopy-based models to estimate the soil biological indicators with only one sample that we need to understand all kind of process that we have in the soil. And also, it's important we have the climate change experiment. We are simulating different soil conditions, like increase of temperature of up to 2 degrees and the rainfall reduction of less of 50%. Now, to try to simulate the condition for the over 100 years. And will be assessed in the next year all kinds of soil properties to understand what happened in the soils if we simulated conditions, extreme conditions of weather. And with this all, we do unified methodology for sampling, processing, data acquisition, and data storage and sharing that you can find and you can consult in the BIOservicES project web page that we have there. And you have available sampling methodology that is could be very useful for your project or for other kinds of initiatives that you have there. And we have a list of indicators also on the website that is 95 soil health indicators that we selected there. And with information about the soil health indicators, the ecosystem service that is provided, the methods, the description of the soil health indicator, and the reference to follow, and you have there. Only to acknowledge to all people involved in this big and huge soil sampling that was developed the last year, that was across different 5 regions. And in some case, we have crazy moments because we have snowy in July in Switzerland. There is things that happened and is delayed some sampling, but was a bit crazy. But was nice because we collected all samples. And I think that the result could be very good to understand the different soil properties and the different land uses and the different soil pressures. Thank you for coming here, and I hope that information could be good for your projects and for other kind of initiatives.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you so much. Okay, great. I just wanted to say that if anyone has questions, maybe we can keep them at the end of all the presentations, because then time management-wise, it's a bit easier. or you can put them in the chat as well, and we can look at them later. Lots of applause for you, Andres, in the chats. Then I'll pass the floor over to Paulo, who's next from Benchmarks. Oh, maybe someone put their hand up. Anna, I see you put your hand up. Anna, do you have a question? Maybe she accidentally put her. Okay, Paulo, the floor is yours.
I'm trying to share. Yes, I'm trying to share my screen, but I think
Andres, if you could stop sharing.
Stop. Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Now?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see the webinar. So if you could open your.
Do you see my presentation?
Yeah, if you can put it in presenter mode.
Yeah. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yeah. From now, I don't see you anymore. Sorry. Thanks for the invitation and for giving the opportunity to present the results of benchmarks that we have so far. The project is in since started in January 2023, so it's 2.5 years in, and it's other 2.5 years to go. First of all, I would like maybe to give a bit of an introduction of what we mean for soil health, at least what we mean for soil health in benchmarks. And soil health can be defined as the capacity of soil to provide two or more soil functions, or to sustain two or more soil functions in a certain time and a specific point in time. And this we also sustain soil functions that we also provide and sustain ecosystem services. And it is important to specify because multifunctionality and soil function is the core, the scientific base of our project, of Benchmarks project. In fact, what we have done at the beginning is to develop this cognitive model, so models that they split soil functions to understand the mechanisms behind them. And for that, we split the functions in different subfunctions, as I showed here in this graph, with subfunction 1, 2, or 3, and so forth, and so on. Each subfunctions then can be split in different processes, and each process then is linked to different parameters. And these parameters can be biological, chemical, environmental, and physical. And then what we try to do is already to place different type of indicators to assess either a function, and this is the desired one, but most of the time it's a bit difficult, or a process, or a parameter that is linked to one of these processes. Of course, if you measure one of the parameters, these indicators are used as proxies to assess a function and so on. Another important step that you have done in this exercise is to locate already the management practices and how these management practices affect either a parameter or a process. And this is because it's very clear that management practices that most of the time are applied in two or more at the same time will affect the functionality of our soils. We have done this work, the development of these cognitive models for 4 different soil functions: water regulations and purification, nutrient cycling, habitat provision for biodiversity, and carbon and climate regulations. And we focus on 3 different land use types: urban soils, forest soils, and agricultural soils. Purposely, we didn't develop these cognitive models for primary productivity because we believe that all these 4 soil functions, the one that I mentioned before, are underneath and sustain already primary productivity. So in a way, they're all connected to the main productivity of the field. And there's also a lot of work done on primary productivity, but there's a bit less of these other soil functions. This is like an example of how one of these models looks like, cognitive model looks like. This is specifically for habitat provision for biodiversity, where we have indeed the function here on the left-hand side that is split in 3 different subfunctions, and each subfunction then is connected to different processes. And for each process, then we have different types of indicators that can be linked to different indicators, while on the right-hand side of the slide, we have the different parameters. And in green, they are the biological one, in red, the physical one, and in yellow, orange, the chemical one, and in gray, blue, the environmental one. These results are going to be soon available as a book chapter. This is open source, and the reference is here. And it got accepted, and we are now finalizing it. So I hope that in the coming 2 or 3 weeks, we can share the link with everybody, so you can read more in detail the process, how these were developed. Benchmarks works on a different, as I mentioned, different land use types, but also at different scales and also with different type of stakeholders. Therefore, the context is essential to understand the types of indicators that you want to select, because of course, different types of context, starting again from who you are, where you are, and which type of soil you have and use, and which type of land use you are in. This will lead to different types of indicators. As well, it's very important the management practices, and because this will affect significantly your soil functions. And that's why what we have done also is to make an inventory, especially in relation to our 28 field case studies. We made an inventory of different management practices, and we scored them. We also collected how many of these are in our field case studies. And AMP stands for agricultural management practice, forest management practice for FMP, and urban management practices. And this led to one award that was published 2 weeks ago on soil biology and biochemistry. This is specifically on the effect of management practices in agricultural systems on the soil biota. This is, I think it's a quite cool job, because they made a meta-analysis with taking into consideration 90 different studies, and they really checked how management practices can affect our biological community at different levels, and not only score the effect of the management practices, as shown in this picture, like when green is a positive effect, gray is a neutral effect, and red is a negative effect, but also highlighted the knowledge gaps. For example, crop rotation or intercrops, there's no results, no data available on the effect of these practices on groups like earthworms abundance or coleoptera abundance. So this was very interesting to see also where we have to focus future research. Another key point of this publication of this work is that the authors, and this part of benchmark, the authors that are all part of benchmarks, they developed a utility robustness score, as shown in these pictures, where they really scored exactly the different types of management practices and the indicators associated to it, if they are good enough to understand that they pick up exactly the effect of a management practice on a specific group of organisms. And the score goes from 0 to 3, where 3 is the highest level of robustness. You can read more information, of course, about this paper. The paper is open source and available, of course, to everybody. And also you can ask me and I can send a copy of this work. A similar approach was done for the urban systems. We submitted recently this paper where we wanted to understand what was out there. It's a review paper. And of course, the number of publications is way limited, way less compared to the agricultural systems. We had around 50 publications in total, where we really focus on different types of urban green areas. And the highlight of this review work is that, of course, it's kind of clear that despite being an increase of interest in urban soil health in the last 10 years, there's still quite a lot to do. And there are mostly of the work done so far focus on the soil pollution remediation and soil health assessment, and very little about the stakeholder engagement, while it's very important also to understand what the needs are of different type of stakeholders. And most of the research is done on the top soils, so completely neglecting the deep soils, and we know that this actually can affect quite a lot of soil functions. And as well, the indicators used are mostly of the chemical one, and there's really not a lot done or barely anything done on the physical side and the biological from the biological point of view. This really gives an idea of how much work we still have to do in this environment. A similar work now is being developed for a forest system. Also, we'll hopefully soon able to present some results on the forest land use type and the gaps in soil health. But of course, in benchmarks, we don't only like to stay behind our computer doing meta-analysis, review papers, and drawing nice graphs and cognitive models. We also like to be in the field. And for that, we have 28 different case studies, dividing it, as shown in this picture, in 3 different land uses: agriculture, forest, and urban, as I said already a few times before. And we also have different types of case studies. So we have 3 main categories. One is that we call the replicated long-term experiments, and both in agriculture and in forestry systems. And as the name clearly explains, these are long-term experiments, most of the time associated to research institutes or universities, where we have big collection of data in the past, but also we are collecting more data now, and this really can give us an idea of the trend of temporal variability. And in this case, we are sampling also at different depths to understand how the difference between topsoil and subsoils can affect also different type of management practices, as well as the indicator selections. The second type of sites are the one that we refer to as Byron sites. These also belong to agriculture and forestry sites. And in this case, we are really interested in the spatial variability of, and we want to test the sensitivity of different indicators. This was developed, the sampling is highly density populated, so we have a lot of sampling points in one field. These are based on the geostatistic methodology and also on the topography. So then we really want to assess how different indicators really can pick the differences within one field. The last type of sampling of sites is the one specifically related to the urban site. We have 5 different cities, and we want to understand how fragmentation affects soil health, but also the indicator selections. And for fragmentation, we have different types of levels of fragmentation, so how fragmented the cities are in terms of urban green areas, and the levels go from 1 to 4, with 4 with the higher levels of fragmentation. And in these 5 cities, we try to sample in all the 4 categories. In these tables, we just summarize is more or less what I've said so far. So we focus both on the temporal and spatial variability, and from temporal one, for mention, we have 3 years of sampling, 1 sample time per year. It's a bit a shame, because I did realize that actually also would have been nice to focus on the seasonal variability, but unfortunately I have to make some decision, as you can imagine, due to also budget constraints. Another good news that I would like to share, that for each of these sites, we have designed different sampling protocols where we indicated the type of indicators that we are assessing, and also the type of how to collect the soils, how to store them, and also how to possibly ship them to different types of laboratories. And these are all available online, and they're publicly available at the website of LUKI. It's the Natural Science Research Institute in Finland. And there's the link here, bottom right of the slides, but also I can share it with you later on. And these are almost the last slides of my presentation, where I just report this huge table where all the indicators that we are testing. This was defined in one of my previous meetings, on the previous meeting, where I presented benchmarks as a Christmas list, a wish list, because as you can see, it's very long and very detailed. And we focus on different types of indicators, chemical, biological, physical, but also we have earth observations, also spectroscopy. And this is because we really want to understand in which context you should use which type of indicators. And again, for context, we really take into account not only the land use types, but also who you are, where you are, and so on. And we, of course, put quite a big focus on the biological side because this component is quite understudied so far. So, but of course, the soil biological community, especially considering that I work for the soil biology group of Wagner University, we really think plays a crucial role in the definition of soil health and soil functions. As you can imagine, this work was not done only by me, but it's really the shared knowledge and the contribution of many different people with their own specific expertise. And these pictures were taken during the last meeting in France, our annual meeting in France in April, last April, a month ago. And these are all the 28 partners that contribute to the benchmarks project. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm also happy to answer some questions, or later on also you can feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you so much. Great to see. Paolo, if you do want to post any of the resources that you talked about on the platform, feel free so people can access it.
Well, thank you.
Yes. And then maybe we can jump over to our next presentation. So we leave a bit of Q&A time for the end. But if people do have questions already and you don't want to forget them, you can put them in the chat and we can look at them later. Andres, I see you have your hand up if you want to. If not, the floor is for David.
No.
No hand. David, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I clicked on the share button and it's going to think about it. I'm hoping. Has it come through yet?
Don't see it yet. But sometimes it's.
So for some reason the share button is not working. Do you need to do something at your end?
Shared, it doesn't give you the option to decide.
So I'm on an entire screen and I have the share button up and the share button is just not responding. Which is funny because it did an hour ago. Let's try that. No, still not.
Right to.
Yeah, it just won't share. Let's go out of that. Let's go again. Let's try this. Share. Oh, I think we have some success.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
And if you can now do presentation mode, that would be
there
amazing.
We go.
Yes.
Oh, that was fun. It's always a bit nerve-wracking, isn't it?
Yeah, when it doesn't. It's always on a new tool, then. Great.
So, okay, great. So I thought for this community, it would be probably useful to look at the countryside survey, which has been running in the UK for the last 5 decades, producing a state and change monitoring in support of research and in support of policy. And just to provide some of the sort of ideas and insights that we've gained through doing this. So the objective of the monitoring platform is to look at the state and change of the UK environment, but importantly, it looks at both soils and vegetation in a standardized way. So it's not just soils by itself. It sees this as part of a sort of continuum. And as I say, it supports research and policy development, but also gives feedback to land managers. So this is the overall design of the survey in Great Britain, where it's based on land class to produce a stratified random survey, and it uses a basic unit of a 1 kilometer square with a nested sampling approach. So the stratification using land class is essentially the things that don't change in the environment, so the soil forming factors that don't change. Parent material, the climate, the relief, and that gives us a fairly stable platform on which to do the stratification. And then in the center here, these are the 1 kilometer squares as distributed across Great Britain. And in 1978, when it started, it had a sample of, I think, 256 squares, and that's expanded over time. By 2007, it was something in the region of just under 600. So within the 1 kilometer square, we have a randomized set of plots, so 5 plots, and at each of the plots, we then take soil samples, and we do vegetation as well, and it's all surveyed. And the topsoil is what we focus on with 0 to 15 centimeters. And we look at a core set of metrics. So the pH, the soil organic carbon, density nitrogen. And we have optional things that have been measured over the time. So there's a suite of from biodiversity through to various metals and what have you. So that's the basis of the survey, and it uses this population approach to determine the mean response so that we can look at change through time. So one of the things that has been really important is defining your purpose. If you're going to go out and set a monitoring system up, you really need to be sure of what you want to do and what you want to address, and the questions that you want to ask of it. Adaptability is really important. So building flexibility into your monitoring system is absolutely critical, because when you're monitoring over decades, the questions that you will want to ask will change. And so one of the advantages of the stratified random approach is that we can bring in extra squares, as you saw before, and so we can report different aspects if required. Making sure that everything's accessible and transparent, especially with the stakeholders, being able to access the information. And this is offset slightly with ethical considerations, because you need to consider the privacy and confidentiality of landowners, especially with GDPR. And then the timelines. What sort of timelines do you want to monitor on? What sort of timelines are the soil processes going to change on, but also what's the decision-making timelines for the stakeholders that are going to be using the information and potentially feeding back in terms of policy development and interventions required. So one aspect of the survey is that it uses a question-based approach. So because it has this statistically robust framework, it means that we can ask all kinds of questions of it that are related to policy. So some of the questions asked in the past, for instance, were, could we confirm the loss of soil organic carbon that had been reported by others? Could we see anything to do with the recovery of acidification with the policies that were laid down to reduce air pollution? Were we able to detect it in the soils? And so these are the sorts of things that are important to policymakers. So the sampling design, one of the important aspects is deciding what sort of reporting unit you want to have. And because we manage by habitats, we report by habitat, because that's what policymakers want to know. It's perfectly feasible to report by soil type, but it's not something that the stakeholders prioritize. So the statistical design is vital, and making sure that it's a robust design, and as I said, gives you the flexibility, but also thinking about how many samples you're going to need, what the validity is, especially for change over time. because it's a statistical framework, you can use power analysis to test out how many samples you're going to need in order to detect certain levels of change. And in terms of then policy actions, thresholds, and the detection of change over time. But you've also got to offset that with the cost effectiveness. And we did an analysis of comparing grid-based and the stratified random, and the stratified random works out cheaper, so is more cost effective and efficient. And a lot of this was also put forward by JRC, who'd also come to the same conclusions when they were developing or inputting into the soil monitoring law. So indicator selection, as already mentioned, there are a number of different factors that have to be considered. So are the indicators sensitive enough to be able to detect change, but specific enough to be able to capture the desired outcomes without being too broad or ambiguous? And that's quite key. The measurability, having a basket of indicators is helpful and allows you to address different questions. And the reliability of indicators when you're thinking about long-term monitoring is really important. People ask us, why do we measure things like loss and ignition? Well, in 1978, you didn't have so many options that you have today. I mean, it's almost 50 years ago. And you need indicators that will last a lifetime. So often the main ones like pH, soil organic matter through loss and ignition have been robust to time. And then being able to choose indicators, we went through a big process in the UK with the UK Soil Indicators Consortium about the process for identifying indicators. They came down to identifying these indicators on the left-hand side as being the most robust and capable of change detection. Although we've measured most of these, currently these ones marked in red are what we are focused on. And then you can think about how they link through to soil threats or to functions, which is what most stakeholders, policymakers want to know at the end. For each of these indicators, one of the things that we found really helpful is having a template table for the indicator, so that you can, it helps you to think about what you're actually using that measurement for. So what function is it assessing? What are the policy objectives of that indicator? And then, you know, what's your domain of interest? What's your scale, the units you're operating in, sort of tolerance levels and action levels potentially that you might be interested in, depending on soil type or depending on the type of land use that you're interested in. So that kind of table and approach we found really helpful in terms of setting out why we do that and explaining it to stakeholders as to what that indicator is for. So it allows us to collect a variety of information. So for things like the state, this is a piece of work that was done looking at understanding the soil porosity. And it means that we get this wonderful data set where we can look at porosity, for example, as a function of the soil organic matter fraction across all the different land uses. And we were able to build a model to explain why that's happening. And that's mostly based on land use and organic carbon, but also the geometry and shape of the particles plays a defining role. Biodiversity, the state of biodiversity has also been something that we've been looking at and trying to understand, especially the links between above and below ground. And this is where the real strength of the approach comes in, when you're measuring vegetation as well as measuring the soils and thinking of that as a system in itself that kind of co-evolves. And this work was done looking at linkages whether there's no abiotic component, whether there's a linear abiotic component or a non-linear abiotic component in explaining those linkages between biodiversity. So one of those questions I showed at the beginning was about whether we've seen change over time and recovery from pH and from acid rain, sorry, in the pH. And this data set has allowed us to see this recovery happening over the past 30 or so years. But what we see now is a little bit of a dip in the last 10 years. But you can see from the bottom how sulfur deposition reduced over time when the legislation came in. So this evidence directly supports the impact of policy and legislation in aiding the environment. The other really good news story is that the soil organic carbon is starting to increase, and this has just been accepted for publication, and this is in cropland soils across Great Britain. So from 1978 down to 2007, we were seeing a decline in cropland systems. Everybody sees this in the measurements that they've been making. And this is the first set of measurements that have come in from the last roll of the survey, which shows it's actually now starting to go back up. And this is, again, through both policy intervention and through farmers taking on things like regenerative approaches. And we'll be digging into this more to look at attribution. But one of the things is you can see how long-term these changes are. Don't expect to see anything in 5 years. You've got to be thinking 10, 20 years, maybe 30 years down the line that you're going to see the level of change that you hope to see. And this is one of the key things, I think, as we go forward with the soil monitoring law, is that stakeholders understand that these are long-term changes that we're looking at. So in summary, I think really the critical thing that we've learned is make sure you've got a really strong purpose, that you can articulate that purpose to the stakeholders, make sure that your design is robust and that you can address the questions that they're interested in to keep it relevant. This piece of work we've had published where we discuss our experience over the last 5 decades and tried to put it all together in order to assist the soil health mission going forward. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I'll let people give their applauses in the chat for you. Thank you, everyone. So that covered the 3 presentations for today. We still have about 20 minutes left, which is great, because we wanted to give some time for everyone attending. We have over 70 people today, which is really great. So if you have some questions for our presenters, you are free to put them in the chats, or also if you don't mind speaking up and sharing your question live, that's also great. I think there was already one question from Virginie. Virginie, I don't know if you want to ask your question yourself, or if not, I'm happy to read it for you from the chat. I think the question was for Paolo.
Hi, Virginie from BRGM. Paolo did answer in the chat, actually.
Okay, great. I didn't see that. That's great.
But I had just a comment on the last presentation that I'm glad that there is a soil monitoring and vegetation, that the below and above is related, is like we look at how we relate below and above, because usually we only look at either vegetation and ecosystems and or at the soil ecosystems. And as some presenters said, we really need an interdisciplinary approach. And I think this approach of linking soil use to ecosystem is really great.
Thanks. I think if I can just say a word on that, I would just amplify that. As much as I'm a soil scientist and so obviously interested in the soils component, I see the absolute power in being able to sell the importance of the monitoring through the fact that it's combined soil and vegetation. And as the soil monitoring law now comes into place, and we have to do soil monitoring across the EU, I think that folks should really consider very strongly the incorporation of vegetation in the monitoring programs because of the importance of linking the two together. Most stakeholders want to know about what the impact's going to be above ground, and I think you really miss a trick if you don't put the two together.
I really agree, and thanks for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Virginie. Are there any other questions?
I only want to say that was interesting webinar because we have different approaches of different projects. And in fact, it's very interesting that we show with David that was this timeline of different soil samples from different years that over the time in UK. That's very nice, especially you mentioned after that in the end about the soil health indicators, the suitable measurability that is stable was very nice to understand who is the robust soil health indicator. Was nice the presentation from Paolo that it's have not the same approach that bioservices, but very similar in some questions. How the approach more or less go for the same way, different way, but for the same end. Let's understand what happened with the soil biodiversity and the ecosystem function and the different pressures. In their case, they have less pressure than us in the bioservices. But it's very interesting how to understand how to measure the soil health because it's not easy to try to understand which a soil health indicator is not a easy question because it's not like measure the pH. You have a method to understand the soil health is very complex because you have different land uses with different needs to different try to understand how to the behavior is different. Even the biogeographical region, it's also a complex to understand the soil health indicator. In our case, for example, we have boreal soil that we have a big organic layer, and it's complex to understand the soil depth that is needed to know about the soil, with the soil health that we have there. And it's interesting the different approaches that we have there. That it's good to show how to function with this kind of issues about the understand the soil health with the soil health in your cases. It was a nice webinar to show different approaches to the same issue.
Can I chip in there? I can't see how to raise a hand, so I just
No, you can just speak up.
just put a real hand up. I think there's some really important points in there, Andres, and Paolo and I are both on the indicators cluster that we're taking forward, and one of the important aspects that we have been trying to put forward in the cluster is defining the purpose of what you want to achieve, what you want to do when you are selecting indicators, and recognizing that indicator selection is purpose specific and often scale specific. So our way of coming at it when we're doing national, when you up at the sort of Lucas scale of things, you're limited in what you can do. You know, there's a suite of indicators, you know, probably 10 or 15, and that's about as much as you can run out at the national scale. But the national scale is often interested in degradation and performance of the system in terms of informing stakeholders. The kind of scale that Benchmark's projects focused on and what Paolo's doing is much more focused on, should I say, the sort of smaller scale management. You have a much wider selection of indicators then according to the purpose. Many of those may overlap. So for instance, pH. You can measure pH at the big scale, you can measure it at the small scale. But the interpretation might be quite different, because if you're growing a certain crop at the small scale, you want to know how the pH is relevant to that crop. Whereas if we're looking at pH at European, at national scale, we might want to know what the thresholds are for something like acid rain, which affects a whole swathe of Europe. So different questions, different interpretations. Do you want to say something on that, Paolo?
Before, and I agree with you, especially at this very moment we still focus on the local scale. You would like to we would like also we will scale up, because according to the project description. But I totally agree indeed that considering the different scales, you have also not different interpretation, somehow different even indicators, but also the approach, because maybe on the local level, you are focusing, let's say, on soil health and functionality, while on the wider scale, it seems at the European level, it's more like also checking soil, so also switch the theme more like on soil threats, for example. Maybe if they're even to, for a political point of view, that from a policy point of view, is more interesting, like erosion or so on. And this, for example, with the dashboard developed by the GRC, that now it's officially called the soil degradation dashboard. So it's also see also how we need a different scale, yes, this nuance between soil health and soil degradation. And then, and in that case, also even the same indicators might indeed be interpreted in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, Andres mentioned the issue about soil health and how do we measure soil health. And when I think of soil health, I'm thinking about the vitality of the system, the emergent properties, the complexity, the multiple functions. And unfortunately, we don't have yet really strong measures for those. So we're often left with a kind of sort of reductionist approach, where we measure a basket of indicators like the pH, the carbon, the bulk density, and what have you, and try and put that together to get an estimate of health. And that's one of the challenges that we face, is stepping into trying to find some of these kind of integrating indicators of health. And I certainly see, I mean, what Paolo was presenting, that meta-analysis, is a really good step at trying to understand across the board that link between management and the organisms that are there in the soil. And we've got quite a way to go, but it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. It's not very, very easy. I think that we have a hands on that is Virginie.
Yes, thank you for all this presentation, and I'd like to jump in the comment about how difficult it is to set to determine the soil health, and to that, I would say to go back to the objective, and this is particularly relevant in an urban context, to establish where you come from. Do I come from a backfield, and where can I go, and how much effort do I put in that in changing the soil that is here right now? And this is especially relevant for contaminated land management, because we're going to change the soil. We want to change the contamination. We don't want the contamination in the soil anymore. And where can we go? And this is in decision making. I guess it will be very relevant to see the objective. And what I wanted to point out also is that soil health in itself, you need to have an objective where I think it will help the stakeholders to understand that it's not just soil health, it is the soil that we have now. How is it? Where does it come from? Is it a backfill? Is it a specific kind of soil? And where can it go? With this story in mind, we will avoid I guess that for stakeholders to think that we have just one soil and it is in good or bad health. So we need to say that every soil that we have at one point has a story, and how can it evolve one way or another, depending, and we take the responsibility also as I think about land planners, that yes, at this state, I want to do a parking area. It is good soil, and what I will do, and I take the responsibility for that. And I know the story of this soil, and I take the responsibility to make a car park, and that's it. I mean, I don't know that if that was very clear, but I think it's not. Indicators are really good, but I think we need a story related to these indicators.
Yes. Sometimes it's not very easy to understand this story.
Yeah.
And because each stakeholder have different needs to understand which is the soil health for this one. It's not the same the soil health for a farmer than for an industrial manager or for a urban manager.
Yeah.
Which is the soil health?
It is I guess it is a clue, because everyone wants something different out of the soils. And from the land managers I've discussed with, they say, I want the soil to be in good health. I want the soil to be able to stand a building above it and have a road also. So I want it to be everything, and it's not possible.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and often we flip things round to talk about healthy soil rather than soil health, and it's a good opening for a conversation about what is a healthy soil, and that's where the story starts. And I think that story, when you're dealing with stakeholders, is really important, and the ability to engender care in the system, that somebody would care for the land, because that kind of emotion, if you can connect people to the land through care, you've got a much better chance of getting positive long-term outcomes. If you simply appeal to sort of power, money, financial emotion, it tends to be very short-lived and often not very productive. So I think the story is really important in generating a connection.
Yeah, I agree with both about this. I don't know if I have more questions. There, I saw in the chat that Valeria Berron said that if you have a limited budget, staff, which indicators would you prioritize to show soil change over time? That is a great question.
Yeah, so we've looked at that question. It is a really important question. Our top three. So soil organic carbon is probably our top one.
Yeah.
pH and bulk density are the
Yeah.
three that we would really focus on, that probably give us the most information.
Yeah. It is probably maybe the more easy sheep, not sheep, but sheep that you can measure and more affordable for different laboratories, and that could be measured and could be give a good information over time. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. We have more questions. I saw some comments on the chat. The video will be is recording and will be shared in the same web page that you do the registration, and you can see again. And regarding the presentations, could be shared, but we need to discuss. I don't know if Paolo or David have an issue to share the presentation, but if not, it's in the video and you can see again the video, because the video is inside the web page and you can find again and you can see every time because it's free to see. And I don't know, we have more questions about the webinar and the presentations. Now we have there, and you can.
If people have more questions coming up afterwards, you can always post them in the group of the event page, and maybe David, Paulo, and Andres can have a look later on, also over the next few days, if there's any more questions coming in.
Yeah,
that would be. Then I just wanted to share the last thing for today's webinar. I'm just quickly sharing my screen again for this. Loading. You should be able to see my screen now. I just wanted to share that we are looking to organize future webinars, not only on this topic, but also other topics connected to soil health. And that we really want to make this an open conversation, so include everyone's efforts. So if you are interested in joining us as a speaker for a future event or webinar, you can contact me. My email is on the page. I will also put it in the chats. And you can also scan this QR code and leave us direct feedback or topic ideas, topics you're interested in that you would love to hear from. And then we can create events that are valuable for everyone and for your work. So I just wanted to share that. Yes, David, go ahead.
Yeah, as Ines bring that up, one thing that comes to mind, I think that'd be really good for this group, is the clusters. So the EU has the clusters across for the living labs, and I think there's 3, the ones on data and indicators, policy, what have you.
Stakeholder engagement and communication is, I think, and they're creating a new one on business models, if I'm correct.
So that could be a really good seminar to get to see what's going on, so everybody can kind of see what's going on across the community and what those clusters are doing.
Yeah, that would be great. I can contact the Soil Community Platform for that as well, to kind of co-create a webinar on that. Thanks, David. We also have dedicated groups on the Soil Community that are kind of related to those clusters. So if people are interested to continue those conversations together, you can join those groups and post your questions or share your resources as well. And yeah, I think that's all for today's webinar. If there's no more questions, I want to thank the presenters today, David, Paulo, and Andres. Thank you so much for preparing these presentations and joining us today. And of course, if you want to share your presentations on the platform, feel free to do so. The webinar will be shared as well, the recording, so people can rewatch that. And yeah, if anyone has future ideas, you can contact me directly. And then we'll see each other at the next Soil Community webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, David and Paolo, for becoming here the presenters today, and thank you to all people that was attending today. And I hope that things that will be interesting for you or your projects and will be good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.